Deze podcast wordt mede mogelijk gemaakt door Agium.
Vandaag de gast hebben we Henry Schirmer, voormalig CFO van onder andere Randstad. En met hem gaan we het hebben over zijn defining moments. Mijn naam is Michael van Asperen en dit is Today's CFO Changing the Game. Henry, welcome. Nice to have you today in our podcast.
Bedankt. Thanks for having me.
You're looking forward to it, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always exciting to be in a setting like that, and very much looking forward talking to you.
Great. I'm really looking forward to coming next 50 to 60 minutes. I think we're going to have a good conversation. First of all, to start off, I always ask the question, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah,
Who are you?
Who am I? I'm Henry Schirmer. I'm still in the 50s, not much longer though. I'm having 5 beautiful children, between 11 and 28 years old. I'm born in Germany. I love sports and music, and I'm just, I think, an optimistic, glass half full guy.
Okay, and you said you are from Germany. So one moment in your career you decided to move to the Netherlands.
Actually there were multiple moments. So yes, born in Germany, actually in Wolfsburg, where Volkswagen is, and moved then to study industrial engineering when I was 18 to the southern part of it. But then at a certain point in life, I fell in love with a Dutch woman. And that made me interested to work for Unilever, because I thought that might be a good thing. And when you're with Unilever, you cannot avoid at a certain point in time going to the Netherlands. And I learned to love to be here. And now I'm here by choice, not just for a job.
and of course for the love.
No, not anymore.
Oh.
Unfortunately, that didn't last forever. But no, actually, I came back at a certain point in time for Unilever to become the CFO of Unilever Europe, based in Rotterdam. And now we live with our family in The Hague.
Yeah. And besides Unilever, what steps did you further make? Because you ended up at Randstad in your last CFO position, but what were the steps in between?
Yeah, actually, there were quite a few steps. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit longer. I started a trainee program with Unilever, and we had a trainee program in the finance function. But finance function back in the days was a very broad finance function, including planning, operations, and so forth. And I had a couple of jobs in Unilever Germany, and then pretty quickly I was posted into Maastricht. That was my first location in the Netherlands. And I had kind of a long career, 28 years actually with Unilever, but I started there 3 times. So once I was sold with the chemicals division, then I returned back into frozen food and ice cream, back in Hamburg, and then I was actually 7 years in London, and I did M&A for Unilever for 4 years, and then another 3 years in a setting in a private equity-owned company, a ex-Unilever company, putting frozen foods on the map, and was a very, very exciting stage of my career.
Yeah, I can understand. You saw a lot from different countries and also different owners, because private equity is different from, of course, being stock listed.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a completely different setting. It was it was around the beginning of the 2000s. Private equity then was living with a lot of debt on the balance sheet. And being a CFO in a company with a lot of debt is a different ballgame than being in a, I don't know, extremely well-organized, settled, older company. So, no, it was a big learning moment for me.
Yeah, and just to take a little jump towards the topic, but just if you have to describe what was the biggest challenge in that period, just if you have to describe it in a few words.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is when you when you work in a private equity setting in a former Unilever company, then at a certain point in time, all the infrastructure Unilever normally provides is being taken away. So you have to totally rebuild a company and all its infrastructure from tax planning, insurance, cash management, operations, governance, policies, all key processes and IT systems. And that is a huge learning curve. It's a lot of fun to set it up, but it's quite uncomfortable at times because you cannot rely on that kind of big mothership who's dealing with everything.
Yeah. So it's this kind of feel of uncertainty it brings.
Yeah, and maybe also kind of a sharper performance edge when you have a lot of debt on your balance sheet, high expectations of investors to give them a very, very good return. Then all of a sudden, there is, instead of kind of a monthly performance call, you're probably in, I don't know, every 2 days with the partners, at least eventually or initially after an investment. And but I like that. I for me, business is like top sports, and it feels when transformations like that happening is like putting a company through a fitness regime, more or less, and it was fun to be part of it.
Yeah. And you like it because you're really business oriented and result driven, probably.
Yeah, I'm result driven, and I like to combine the short term with the long term, because the real value creation in every setting is to grow a company profitably. So it's not just kind of making a quarter and then it's all good. It's like the biggest valuation lever you can pull is actually profitable growth, and that's not easy to come by without not taking everything into account, not least actually the people involved. So you need to have high engagement, you need to invest into marketing. So there's a bit of a misnomer around private equity. There's flash and burn, and it's quite the opposite. You need to do a really proper job to create long-term value.
Yeah, because it's very difficult to manage a long-term view that you have versus short-term things that happen within the market and which you have to act on. It's quite difficult to balance those two.
Yes, it is, but it's a bit like, I don't know, talking about sports. You cannot win games if you don't have a good defense and a good offense. And it's quite often people ask in settings like that, what do you want, growth or profit? And the answer is always, both. And in the right balance, of course, you might have quarters where you're investing more to kind of gain market share or to grow the top line because you see a good growth opportunity. But you can only do that in a, I don't know, sensible way, with a good proposition, a good margin behind it. Otherwise, you will never create value.
Yeah. Is that also because you say engagement is very important? And I promise you, after this question, we'll go into the defining moments. But just out of curiosity, if engagement is very important, of course, the people who are in your teams are a lot of times also very busy with the short-term opportunities or things that happen. How do you try to translate those short-term decisions which you make in the long-term view that you have?
Yeah, I mean, today's short-term was yesterday's long-term, right? I mean, that is like you. It just, in whatever you do, you need to be able to define a North Star in your strategy or in whatever setting you are. And then you need to just making sure that what you do in the short term is really kind of accumulating towards that goal. You can't, it's probably not always a straight line, but you cannot always cut corners. I mean, you never get there. And so it's important for good leadership, I believe, to create that context of where do you want to be in a couple of years or in the longer term, and why it's so important to do those short-term things. So actually plotting your way towards that goal.
Yeah, so constantly keeping that North Star insight and linking the short-term decisions to the long-term goal.
That's probably one of the biggest leadership tasks one have to provide that context to the company, to people working there, and everybody, even the person who's doing the daily cash flow management, which is a very short-term task, to make sure that person is understanding how important it is actually to keep the lights on in order to actually see the long term and not going under before.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we'll get into this a little bit more in the defining moments, but let's go to the topic of today, which is the defining moments. Yeah. And looking back on your career, what was one of the important defining moments for you?
Yeah, so when you've invited me for the podcast, you've mentioned that topic, and I must probably disappoint you. There is no black and white in that one kind of moment where you gave that brilliant PowerPoint presentation. It is probably when I look back on my career, the learning curves you're going through, and within those learning curves, moments where you have an opportunity to make a difference. Let's bring to life. I had very early in my career, I was offered the opportunity to become the finance and say the operational leader of a production unit in Berlin. That unit was actually under threat to be closed, and as soon as you arrived there, you get very close to the people, right? There was about 600 people working there, 600 families involved. So you immediately feel the responsibility you have in your job. And you immediately feel it's not just about, making sure that the production costs are most optimal, but actually taking a holistic view about the future, about that production location and how to serve all stakeholders in that setting. And when decisions try to be made, which would go dramatically across some of those stakeholders, I felt I had to step forward and provide leadership. And that was an unproven property for myself because you go to university, you study. Normally you get famous for, a good piece of analytics or a good spreadsheet or whatever you do. But all of a sudden it was bigger than that. It was more holistic. It was about values. It was about how to deal with people, etc. And doing that with absolutely value creation in mind. So, I was surprised about myself how much responsibility I felt and how I was able to step forward, which was quite uncomfortable at times. But then looking back, I think that was probably one of the defining moments for myself in that stage of career.
Because how old were you at that moment?
I was probably 28 at the time. Yeah. 28, 29. And although it was at times controversial, and that's why it creates that tension, because it would have been easier just to kind of say yes and kind of go with the flow, then you keep your head down and it's fine. At that point in time, I was challenging actually decisions coming from, from people who were probably 5 stages above me. And, but I engaged, I think, in an emotional, intelligent way that people could see my point, and they were then engaging with me, and that helped me also being on the map for not just the guy who's, I don't know, maybe doing good reports or has a good analytical mind, but also has leadership potential because I took a more holistic view than just a spreadsheet.
Yeah. So you felt the responsibility for those 600 people in the factory to make sure that they still had a job tomorrow, the day after, and next year.
Yeah, that was one dimension, but there was also a real dimension of decision making and what to do with production, where to locate it, how to place it, but then also in that context, how to deal with the people. And actually, with my engagement, I helped, I think, optimizing the decisions, which were otherwise probably gone down the road and would have not been as optimal as I felt we could deal with the situation.
So what was the result? What was the result that you were able to manage there in that position? So what happened when you were there?
I think what we've managed is to get the full engagement of the workforce to give the very best until the very last day of before actually the production had to close, which was the right decision in the end. And we could achieve that by also making promises and delivering against them that every single person was offered alternative jobs. It depended on mobility also for them, but it was sort of a more holistic approach to it. And then part of the production was transferred to other places. And I think at the end, it was better results for the shareholder and was better result for all people involved.
Yeah. Yes. And so your leadership was towards, let's say, two phases. You had the leadership phase towards the people who were above you, within probably the finance function also.
No, it was even much further. It was even actually beyond the company I was in.
Okay.
It was very, very senior folks who didn't bother to consult anybody on the ground, but I, without invitation, invited myself to the table and to discuss what to do.
Okay. So you demanded a seat at the table for yourself by just going there and how was that perceived? What happened the first time that you did that? Did you invite it yourself?
People were very angry and very kind of grumpy and said, "What is that now? Why are you not just executing what we're telling you?" And I, even felt a threat to lose my job, then engaged on a different level to bring people to the table.
Yeah. So there was this kind of feeling in your stomach that, ooh, what am I doing here?
Yes, but I also had another feeling in my stomach. If I don't do it, I can't live with myself. I think it was a real leadership moment because I felt it was the right thing to do.
Yeah,
and I at that time I would have been prepared to lose my job over it.
Oh wow, that's quite a sacrifice that you would be willing to do to step up. Not a lot of people would do that.
Yeah, but I don't want that to be seen as an heroic thing. But it played in my mind. It was a conscious choice. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you translate this experience that you have, and then putting yourself in a CFO position, what do you do? What do you do differently versus, let's say, people who were above you then? With the experience that you have, so do you actively invite people to sit at the table and voice their opinions and their minds?
So I think there's a lot of decisions to be taken, investment decisions, etc., etc. I think it's at least important for everybody around the table taking those decisions to try to understand as best as possible what is actually the decision about, and what are the key value drivers of the success or the hope you put in an investment or in a transformation or whatever you might do. And quite often it is to involve people who are not so obvious to be involved. And when it's about a production decision, then go there where people produce stuff and talk to them. But I also want to be honest here. Quite often it's not so easy to have kind of a full, perfect view about the topic.
Yeah.
So quite often there is decision under uncertainty, but at least you should have the intent and deal with that intent as good as you possibly can with the hours of the day you have available and so forth. But in my last job, for example, with Randstad, I would go on a regular basis to branches and then sit with people and say, could you please show me how we do things? Or I was famous or infamous to have about 50 applications running as a candidate to eat our own dog food, to understand how is the candidate actually being treated in the process, and how does it feel. And I not just did it for Randstad, I also, applied for jobs at Adecco or wherever. So
just see what the competition...
so it's really kind of to making sure you're grounded your feet in the reality of things. But as I said, I want to also cut some slack for my colleagues. It's not always super easy.
Yeah, it takes up a lot of time, of course, to be active on the working floor, and especially the bigger the company is, the more layers there are between, the harder it is to get down to the workshop. But if you just do it once a year, that's a start, right? It depends on the context you're in. I mean, if you're facing kind of very big decisions, say in IT systems, then it would definitely be good to sit in front of some of them and talk to people using it and say, so what are you missing, or what is your experience? Or then you're already, I guarantee you, 5 steps in front of everybody else. Yeah.
But maybe one other dimension in the same context. I think it's important when you're a CFO or a finance leader or a leader in general to create an atmosphere around you that you nurture the environment that and force people actually taking a view on stuff, that you're not surrounded with an echo chamber.
Yeah.
That actually it's good to have people to say, I don't get it, Henry, why are you doing that thing? It's like, if I would be in your shoes, I would do it differently. So if you have that kind of culture, then at least you can start challenging yourself and reflect on it, and normally you get to a better result. Sometimes it's, painful, or it might take a bit of time, or it's not so smooth, or creates even tension, but that is healthy, I guess.
And would it be right to say that if you're in a leadership position and nobody around you is challenging you, you're doing something wrong?
Yeah, it's definitely a bad thing. You might feel you have a good life, but in a complex world we're living in, where you as a single person cannot actually grasp all the complexity in the world we're living in. It's good to have a diverse team with diverse ideas, but part of diversity is also the acceptance of that of that diversity. That you get different positions, different points of view to the table, and I think it's important.
Yeah, and in your leadership journey, when you were 28, you also felt the responsibility toward the workforce. What was one of the things that you would do is talk a lot to them and explaining what is happening, and trying to get them on board on the journey that you were in. What were one of the hardest things in your leadership development towards them? What was one of the things that was hard?
It's just hard to go on stage and tell people that the location will be closed. people are losing their jobs. And it's good that it's hard, that you never get used to it or letting people go. It's also part of leadership. It's necessary and important. And it's also okay that you feel that's not your favorite job to be done. and it's hard. It's emotionally hard,
Yeah. You had a lot of nights where you were awake and just thinking and grinding your thoughts.
Yeah, you're absolutely not doing that between breakfast and lunch. No. You definitely carry that with you, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, and then after that experience, you were a more. It kind of shaped you towards what you are now. Not entirely, because you have other experiences afterwards, but it was one of the maybe keys. Stones of the CFO, which you've been.
I think I'm grown with that experience for sure. I've bottled up the feedback I got from people who were disappointed in the fact that they were losing their jobs, but gave a lot of kudos to the leadership, how it was being dealt with, and that helped you also grow in confidence, and you take that with yourself.
Yeah. And is there one thing that you would have liked to done different in that period? I mean, there's you make mistakes every day, but there's nothing as far as leadership is concerned which I think I would have done different. Maybe that engagement in the beginning was a little bit tough. I think with hindsight and more confidence going into that job, I probably could have engaged those senior folks earlier. But it is what it is. I mean, you just have to deal with the cards and who you are in that position. No. And in hindsight, it's always easy to say I should have done. Of course.
No, there's not really anything.
And if we take a step forward, so this is one of these moments. What was a different defining moment for yourself?
No, I think it goes in the same vein. I want to kind of mention one other thing where. So I did those jobs, and then I had more or less every 2 years in that stage kind of a new challenge, a new job somewhere. At a certain point in time, I was hired into a very small group of people, 3 actually, who dealing with entire Unilever portfolio and all M&A around it. Joint ventures, strategic alliances, but also buying and selling of companies, and located in London. And all of a sudden you are placed somewhere where everybody is so much more senior than yourself, and it's a different setting. You're not in the company setting anymore. It's a real headquarters. There's a lot of oil paintings around you, and that can be quite anxiety-inducing at first. So, and one of my first projects was to deal with a Asian joint venture, 6 Asian companies doing a big valuation, and getting to a number of the valuation, because that was important for decision making for the Unilever board, what to do with that unit. And we were supported by, I don't want to mention the name here, but one of the most prominent investment banks and consumer teams in those banks. So the FMCG consumer teams are really kind of A-star talents in there. So before you know it, you find yourself in settings, big meetings in Hong Kong, or there was one big meeting in New York. And there's a feeling that everybody around the table knows more about M&A and the technicalities of it than myself. But when it came to calling the number, the valuation being done, I had a little bit a déjà vu to my experience in Berlin, that I had made my homework and I came to a certain number, but that was quite different to the number those investment bankers try to sell. And I've engaged with them and say, look, I'm sure my spreadsheet must be wrong. It was a very, very big difference in there. And it was a bit like, it's fine. And they don't even really look at it, and just kind of dealt with the many more senior people at Unilever at the time. And I just put my foot down and say, kind of, my dead body, will we go into a meeting with that kind of number? And then, I don't know, you get kind of the global head of investment banking starts engaging, say, what is that here? Say, I don't know what that is, but either you explain me where my view is wrong, or we are not going with your number, we're going with my number. And since they couldn't explain it, we went with my number, and that is how the deal went down. And because I felt at that time there was no emotions involved in terms of people losing their jobs or whatever, but it was about a professional view about things. And I had the same sort of physical feeling even in my belly, that to say, sorry guys, that's my opinion and I can always be wrong. That's not the point. But then at least engage with me and tell me how it should look like. And that was that felt extremely good. Also tension again, because I was going a little bit against the grain at the time, and I was just forcing my view into the game, which I believe I was paid for. And I also got the feeling then from the Unilever board that saved a lot of money for the company.
Yeah, because probably their number was higher than your number was, or
much higher.
Yeah, yeah, because they really want to sell it. they want their work. But how did your two colleagues react? Because you were with three in the team.
Yeah, they were actually being on a different project.
Okay.
So, but of course, I consulted them, and they had my back in terms of that. Technically, I was on the right path. But I mean, valuation is an art and a science.
Yeah.
So it's also kind of a view you take about an economy, about a market, about growth potential of the market you're in, etc. So it's not black and white, but it was too different to what I thought was the right one, and that in the context of when you kind of parachuted into a setting, I want to encourage everybody, don't be too carried away by people being more senior or kind of making 10 times the salary you make. You're there for a reason. So therefore, kind of don't let the opportunity pass by to kind of put a foot on the ground, if you have a point, of course.
Yeah. And also, what happened with the relation with the investment bankers after the decision was made? Did you see that they were more open into discussion with you because you held your foot down?
Yeah, there's definitely still from those days very strong relations, because people were seeing that, and we always said, if you need a friend, buy yourself a dog. There was, in that world, respect is actually the biggest currency, and I think there's a lot of respect.
Yeah. So you gain the respect by keeping your foot. Did they also change? Did you have further dealings with them in other deals?
Yeah, constantly.
So the relationship was also then. Were they more realistic then afterwards with the numbers?
No, I mean, they were kind of a first class outfit. It was not a bad bank, but they definitely included myself in a total different style than before.
Yeah. And also one of the lessons which you take from here, I think, is that it doesn't matter how much knowledge somebody else on the other side of the table has. Don't let them overwhelm you with it. just keep challenging them and see if the knowledge still is sticks, or that's just kind of sorry to swear, bullshit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like I always reminded myself, also had kind of good mentors at the time in Unilever. Unilever asked me to be there for a reason. To probably do exactly what I did. So also here, I don't want to kind of sell it as kind of a huge heroic thing, but if you ask me myself how I felt about it, I felt good about it because I felt again a leadership moment. It wasn't a financial technical issue. It was like, okay, am I now brave enough to go against the grain, against those people who have beautiful decks and PowerPoints? You start crying when you see them. They're so beautiful. But then at the end of the day, it was about that one number, and that didn't stack up.
Yeah. And what also in both stories is you mention the people in both of the of those stories. So let's say people working in a company or people working on yourself are very important to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm so convinced about that. Actually, the quality of the people in the company make all the difference. It's probably even, I don't know, kind of very generic statement, but I truly feel that way. It's very hard to differentiate yourself with kind of a brilliant strategy. The real differentiator is kind of an okay strategy with kind of brilliant people, and they will win. There's no other way.
Yeah, but also doing good for your people and being realistic.
Yeah, that's part of it. There's that older model of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of my private equity experiences, the leading through greed and fear. So if you do well, here's a bonus. If you do not so well, we fire you. But the much better, longer term way of leadership is leading through purpose, and that is not sort of a concept nobody can grasp. It's about making sure people being appreciated, you get the best out of people, using all the talents which are in there. Then also, of course, paying them extremely well when the success is there. But I'm absolutely a big believer in that.
Yeah, and also you talked about let's say strategy with a football analogy. You probably have the same view if you look at teams in the workplace versus a football team. You have different 100%. Kind of people who you have the people who probably are the number sixes who do a lot of work but you don't really see them or hear them, are very important. And of course you have your stars and etc. Where do I want to go with that?
No, I can tell you where you go. I mean, if you want to learn something about leadership, just watch Ted Lasso on Apple TV. A little advertising campaign here. I'm a huge fan of that program. I don't know whether you've seen it, but it's just watch it. I think it's actually in a football setting, but it's all about how to create success or actually how to create failure. And it's you see it also in real life. When you look at Liverpool, or we all know teams which win and which are probably not on paper the strongest individuals, but there's just some magic in that team, and that magic is being created by leaders.
Yeah, is it also the last step that you made towards Randstad? Is it a very logical step? From the let's say the business are totally different, of course, but did the company really suit what you were suited you like a suit what you're standing for in the perspective of people, and people are your greatest asset, which you
100%. Yeah, no, I mean Randstad is such a beautiful, iconic, powerful company because it has such a good, strong set of values, which is all about people. It's all about trust, about knowledge, about getting the best out of yourself. It was 100% fit.
Yeah. Because I read in an interview somewhere, I don't know which one it was, that there was this video from Goldsmithing, which you saw it and it was like, yeah, this is my company.
Yeah, it's an 8-minute video. I can only, for those who haven't seen it, it's where Fritz Goldsmithing talks about why it's the best job on the planet to give other people opportunities and a job, and that kind of attracted me to the company. There's more to it then. There's more interviews. There's more kind of engagement with senior leaders of it. But absolutely. That was sort of the first trigger point for me.
Yeah. So, and then I don't. In your story, do you also have a defining moment in Randstad? Otherwise, I really want to jump into that one. Or
no, it's also probably too young that it would be appropriate for me to talk about it. But yeah, there were also kind of a lot of leadership moments for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you have another example of a defining moment?
Yeah, there is. No, I mean, it just for those who are listening and already CFOs or on their journey, I just want to mention that how important it is from my point of view to put yourself on a lot of learning curves, and because in learning curves there is something magic happens. You feel exposed because you, by the definition, you are putting yourself into a context where you're not, by way of being the strongest person with the best knowledge, that you play in there, and you have the opportunity to see something fresh, which is just adding your perspectives, and all those learning curves accumulated in a way, creating then a certain leadership repertoire or knowledge you're accumulating, which is helping you becoming the person you want to become. But it's important, and sometimes, and in my career, I enjoyed it, being mobile to physically mobile to kind of to search those learning curves is important, because if you're just staying in one place and you're surrounding yourself always with the same people in the same industry, if 15 years down the line, those people who are putting themselves on those learning curves will just be stronger people.
Yeah. Because one of the questions you would have wanted to ask you is how do you put yourself in a new learning curve? Because you have to be proactive with that. So how did you do that? How did you put yourself in new learning curve?
I mean, I must admit, being part of Unilever is sort of, there's an institutionalized learning curve. It's sort of the talent developing model. In order to grow leaders, they more or less take you out every 2 or 3 years. If you become more senior, then those periods becoming longer, because you also need to have, in a posting, in a setting, the chance to see what your decision making has created, and the mistakes you've made, and so forth. But it was easy in that setting. If you were doing well and you were delivering in a job, then people say, maybe there was kind of annual talks about, Henry, what do you want to do next? Yeah. And then you would say, I don't know, I'd like to change country, I'd like to change a category, I'd like to go from, I don't know, marketing and pricing, accounting, I'd like to go into production environment or supply chain or procurement, whatever it might be. And it was fantastic. You could do just a lot of good things, provided you were delivering in your job you were in. And
also because you were switched around quite often, especially when you were younger, you will probably never really have a feeling of being comfortable in the position which you're in.
No, it's always. I mean, it takes you 6 months until you able to contribute in a meaningful way. Then you have probably 1 or 2 years to do it, and then you go to the next one, and that is sort of in the early years, say the first 10 years of your setting. But you could also do it if many people are in startups and in smaller settings. Just challenge yourself. How comfortable are you feeling? If you're feeling too comfortably, you're probably not growing too much anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a personal choice. I mean, people can live their life however they like. But if you see business as top sports, then you better make sure you are in the best possible games with the best possible peer group that you can also learn a lot from the people you're dealing with.
Yeah. So in your opinion, there is a limit on how long for a CFO to be in one position for a specific company. There's this time in which we have had the best.
Yeah, there's also the possibility to grow differently, and you have the same job title, but you're just taking different things on board. You might come into a company and there's kind of financing is the most important, and you do it. Then M&A comes, you need to kind of have a big M&A integration. Then there's probably a demerger from your M&A mistake you've made. I don't know what it is, but those are also learning curves on the job. So if you're not jumping to different jobs, then at least try to seek those things within.
Yeah, try to broaden your own perspective. Yeah, okay. But that's indeed a good one because I think a lot of people are very comfortable in the position in which they're in. But you have to. There is one thing that jumped to my mind when you're talking about top sport. So it comes to mind if you really want to be the best and the best and the best. A lot of people would have the feeling from, I don't know if I really want that because then I have to work 80 to 90 hours a week. Is that something which is necessary to be one of the best or not?
No, it's not necessary. But if you're on that path to become the best, then and you have that thought, you're probably not on the right path. I don't know. It's so it needs to be fun what you're doing, and you need to enjoy it. And it's not always kind of honeymoon and perfect. There's kind of difficult periods, difficult times in the day, etc. That goes without saying. But you should, in a way, I bet you that the best sports guys, they wouldn't say, "Oh, I want to become, I don't know, the top 5 tennis player, but I hate practicing." I don't know. It's like that doesn't fit for me in the same conversation. But I can tell you that what I was always seeking with increasing seniority is more freedom to operate, and it would kill me. Even if I only have to work 30 hours, that somebody would tell me exactly 5 times a day what I need to do. That would not be good for me. So, and I always, you get those questions about work-life balance. It's also in a way what we're talking. For me, there is only life. And part of life is playing, part of life is working, part of life is family time, is responsibility, and you just need to find the way to kind of to fill it in the right balance that you stay in balance over a long period of time, which is not always easy. But I don't think there's a correlation between seniority of a job and the hours you put in a day.
Okay. But one of the things that which is very important for you is to have that freedom, and freedom is the opportunity to make your own decisions within a clear set of boundaries. So you know where the boundaries are, but they have to be far apart in order to operate in between that. And that makes it fun for you to work within. And then it doesn't matter if you work 30, 40 or 50 hours or that it differs per week, but then you have the feeling that you that you have fun. And it's not really work.
Yeah, that you find enjoyable at least. But what you always have in a way, the more complex it probably gets, and the more responsibility you feel, you always take it with you. But yeah, that is a choice. When I look back, I never had the moment that I thought, now I go home and left it totally in the office.
Yeah, you just closed the door and walked out.
You're always kind of carrying thoughts with you, and you're mulling it over, and you're sleeping over it. There's a process, but I like that.
Yeah, but I do think one of the important things if you want to be in the top league. If I hear your story, then you are always willing to make the best out of it. You want to do not just the job, but you want to do the best job because you want to be proud of it, and you want to be proud of the accomplishment which you've made. And it doesn't matter in which level of the organization you are.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I never distinguished that being kind of my first week on the job in my trainee program, or if you're already in an executive board. It's the task might differ, and your maturity might be different. That goes without saying. But no, I tried never to leave anything on the floor, as you say, to just kind of give my best. And of course, you have good weeks and not so good weeks, etc., etc. But that should be. That's part of, and that is easier if you're enjoying it most of the time than if you find it a grind.
Yeah. And then because it's very closely linked also to engagement, because if you get engagement of people of course want to do the best. Is then your role as a leader probably mainly to make sure you have the engagement and just keep on telling people what their part in the bigger picture is?
Yeah, a very, very big job of a leader is to create an environment where other people feel good to contribute to an overall direction the leadership needs to provide.
Yeah,
and absolutely, there is when you look at some leaders who are probably not getting it so right. Just getting out of the way would already be kind of a job well done. No, but it's definitely a big part. I mean, but there's also different jobs. We talk about now kind of quite general leadership roles, but say there's a lot of people probably listening who are filling in a specialized or job like kind of being a leader of the tax function, etc. There's also a lot of leadership to be provided, but maybe those jobs are also kind of then even a little bit more about the expertise you bring and the kind of the smartness for that specific topic in there. But at the end of the day, it's all the same. Leaders need to lead, and you can only lead if somebody follows you.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. And it's always not the leader is the one who makes the difference, but I think it's the second one who follows. Not the first one, but the second one who follows.
Might well be.
They always say, well, I'm not entirely sure if it's correct, but I saw it on a video once. We've been talking for about 55 minutes already. So
no way.
Yeah, time flies when we're having fun.
Yeah.
So that's very good. Is there one, as we in the Netherlands say, an uitsmijter, which you would like to share with us?
Nee, ik zou een uitsmijter heel graag eten nu. Maar No, just kind of. I think I made my point. I'm now kind of a little bit older. I have a lot of jobs to looking back on. If you're on that journey, I just want to make the point. Just when you feel you're in the grind, also see the privilege you have to engage on complex points. Yeah. So there is. I would love to be 25 again in a very junior job and
with all the knowledge that you have now.
No, right?
No. Just start over again.
No, even with the naivety and with the energy I had, it's just a privilege to be on the pitch with other people and try to win the game. And winning is not just defined by the score. You can also win a game. And you've just lost that match, but you might win the league because you showed good leadership, or you created a bond with a colleague or whatever it might be. But just don't take the short term too serious. In terms of let it go under your skin too much. There's always another match to come, and just enjoy being in it.
Yeah. And also, to be honest, when you're saying I love to be 25 again, it's also because all the experience the new experience which you get to have, and I don't. At some point in life, a lot of people stop having those new experiences. But you need to keep having new experience every time. Not only in job, but also professionally, personally, of course. But I think that's a nice uitsmijter, as we say. I would very much like to thank you for your time and your story and your honesty and your vulnerability, of course. I hope you had fun.
Yeah, it was really good. Also, kind of a learning curve for me doing that. And thanks for having me.
Oh, and thank you for being here. And everyone, thank you again for listening. And we'll see you at the next episode. Vond je dit nou een leuk gesprek en wil je meer verhalen horen van CFO's? Volg ons dan op ons Agium kanaal.